Hello, historians. This is Mr. Fredo. We are starting a new unit, and our first mini lesson for this new unit is the introduction to the Middle Ages. And I will tell you ahead of time, this is a different type of unit. Rome was all about all of this excitement, and the Greeks and studying ancient Greece was all about all their great creations. The Middle Ages is not going to be very fun. The Middle Ages is a very, very sad time. It's an awful time to be alive. Imagine the worst day of your life. Twitter isn't working. Instagram's been infected by a virus. Chipotle gets shut down again for some other type of disease or contaminant outbreak. That's what every single day was like during the Middle Ages throughout Western Europe. And it all really starts, the Middle Ages, this time period, refers to the time period in between, or in the middle of, the end of the Roman Empire and the start of the Renaissance. That's what the Middle Ages is. Sometimes it's called the Medieval Era or the Dark Ages. They all refer to the same time period, and it's that time in between the fall of Rome and the start of Europe's Renaissance. But it all gets started because of Rome. When the western half of the Roman Empire falls, all of that land is up for grabs. And that means all of those different enemies who had been attacking are now going to be fighting and conflicting with each other to gain control of that land. It starts off with what's called the Age of Chaos. That's how the Middle Ages get started. Now, that's just the beginning. All throughout this roughly 1,000 year time period, from around 500 CE through around 1500 CE, and that might be a little bit of a long estimate. Some might say closer to about the 1300s, but around 1,000 years, this was a terrible time to be alive. It was terrible for a lot of reasons. It was terrible because of war. People could be fighting over land. They could be fighting over religion. Whatever the case was, if you could think of a reason to fight and go to war, it was happening during the Middle Ages. War was constant throughout Western Europe throughout this time period. Disease, oh my goodness gracious. You're looking at a Black Death victim. I believe this is just an actor, but think about this. Europe was so dirty and crowded, and there were all these issues with sanitation. People would get these buboes or these big swellings that would build up all over their body in these big areas of their glands. They would cough so hard they'd explode all over the place. You get the idea. Disease, common, one of the other reasons that the Middle Ages was terrible. Another reason, torture. This was a terrible time to get in trouble as well. You could be put on the rack, which is going to put your legs here and your arms here, and they're going to crank these levers until your body split apart. You get thrown in the Iron Maiden, which is going to slam shut, and all these holes are going to poke you. One of the many reasons the Middle Ages was a terrible time to be alive. And then lastly, persecution, a little bit more serious here, where people are being treated unfairly because of their beliefs. A lot of times, this persecution had a lot to do with religion. So take your pick. You could, and there's plenty more reasons other than this, but there's plenty of reasons why the Middle Ages was a terrible time to be alive. People were being treated unfairly because of their beliefs, whether it was because the Catholic Church had gained so much power, or whether it was because kings had started to develop certain beliefs of their own and they wanted their territories a certain way. They were terrible because of torture. If you got in trouble in the Middle Ages, you were going to pay for it, and a lot of times you were going to pay for it in public. You could contract one of these terrible diseases that would end up wiping out a third to two-thirds of Western Europe's population. You could get caught up in war. Take your pick. This is the tough time to be alive. And ladies and gentlemen, historians, we're going to be at it for a long time.